From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson, joined by my dear friend over the phone.
And this is the hardest, baddest, still sexiest man on cable access TV, awarded by all the lovely young ladies that are so into me. They gave me a trophy saying all this, and then some. This is your man in the plan with the questions of all questions is Hector Bosa. Now, Jamie, to top it all off, hockey.
Yeah.
Even though football is the biggest thing, but hockey, they're in the playoffs right now. What's going on? As an Islander fan, should I be scared and should I be worried?
Yeah, they should be scared because the way Columbus has been playing, not Columbus, but Carolina. The way Carolina has played in this postseason, upsetting Washington the way they did, the defending champions, and then just rolling into this series with 2 straight wins against the Isles. It's looking more and more like the Hurricanes are becoming that big Cinderella story that the NHL usually gets when playoff time comes around. You got to give them credit. I mean, it's not anything that the Islanders haven't done. I mean, they've played well, and Robert Lehner's done a great job in goal, but Carolina's got some guys who have been through a lot of playoff wars, like Jordan Staal and Justin Williams, who's already won 2 titles with the Kings. Staal, of course, won a title with the Hurricanes, I think many, many years ago, 2004, if I'm not mistaken. But now the Hurricanes really have the Islanders' number this time, and they have a chance to close it out in Raleigh in the next 2 games.
Because my question is, was this supposed to be one of those things where the Islanders were supposed to make the playoffs, or were they supposed to not make the playoffs, and they were just supposed to be like 4th place or 5th place or whatever, and then build a little bit at a time, or did they peak too fast?
They definitely were expected to be near the bottom of the totem pole this season because after losing John Tavares, they didn't have that number 1 scorer that was going to be able to get them to that next level. When you think about it, the Islanders have completely overachieved this season, not just making the playoffs, but winning a round. So when you think about it, the Islanders have done a lot more than people expected them to.
Should the Islander fans, if they lose the series, should they be disappointed?
Well, they'll be disappointed with the loss, but they'll be more than happy with the way the season was extended, if you will, because of this mini playoff run that they made. And think about it. The Islanders went through a coaching change, bringing in Barry Trotz, who led Washington to a title last year. Barry Trotz did everything possible to make this team competitive. If anything, he should be the Jack Adams Award winner for Coach of the Year for what he's done with this team.
And Lou Amarillo, give him credit, too. He just stepped in there and did what he had to do.
This guy, it seems like everywhere he goes, from Providence College to the Devils to the Maple Leafs and now to the Isles, all he does is wave this magic wand and just turn his teams into a contender. It's just a testament to his hockey knowledge. There's a reason why he's in the Hall of Fame.
Because it's kind of classy how he can do these things. He's another one that's got the magic touch.
This is true.
Yeah, he's got a magic touch. Now I don't want to go into football right away because I want to find out about the other hockey teams that are playing in the playoffs right now.
Yep, there are 3 other series going on. The other series in the East right now is Boston versus Columbus. That series is tied at 2, and Columbus came away with a 3-2 victory in Game 2 to even that series. That's in the East. The West has the Stars against the Blues. That series is tied at 1. And there's also the Avalanche against the Sharks. That series is tied at 1.
Do the Islanders have a chance at all to come back? I'm sure they're going to win at least one game because their problem is scoring right now.
Yeah.
Not defensive play. It's just scoring.
Yeah.
Because the scores have been low, according to what I know. Now, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
They do have a chance in this series, but plain and simple, they need to start putting some goals on the board. And secondly, do something to neutralize Justin Williams and Jordan Staal in this series because they have been the two best players that the Hurricanes have had in this series.
Now, do you think the Islanders fans from Long Island are going to complain about, well, if they were to play over here, they could have had a better chance at winning? Or does it matter where they play because they can't call the Barclays Center their home?
You know, they could have played at Rockefeller Center for all I know.
I would have liked to have seen that.
That would have been cool. Either way, the Hurricanes have been the better team in this series.
So who's your Cinderella team right now going in?
Well, my Cinderella team is still on the board right now, and that's Colorado. And Colorado already pulled off a 5-game victory over the Western champion, which was Calgary. So now they have San Jose, and Colorado's already tied that series after winning yesterday. And Colorado's been doing this with a really good plethora of young players that really have been shining in this series. And game 3 of Blues versus Stars is taking place in the next hour.
Now, you went to a trip yesterday.
I did.
Saturday. Did you meet any famous sports people?
I ran into my wrestling friend, Andrew Anderson, over at Chile yesterday. As a matter of fact, I saw him for the second time in the last maybe 10 days because before that I ran into him at a career day at my friend's high school because I was invited to speak. I was invited to speak over at Ridgefield Memorial High School in Ridgefield, New Jersey.
You were invited to speak?
Mm-hmm.
About what?
About careers in the broadcasting field, in television and in radio.
Oh, man, I wish I would have been there. I would have given him a great lecture on how to get women.
I hardly think that a guy who passes himself off as the sexiest man on TV would be a credible source.
Right. Get it right. The hardest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV. Not
whatever,
TV.
man. Anyway,
Okay.
let's get this thing moving.
Now that we've done the Islanders and the hockey, should we do football? Because the Jets seem to have the Luan Murillo. We're talking about touches, legal touches because they're over 18.
Yep.
But he seems to have the Midas touch. The Jets seem to have the Midas touch right now. They can do no wrong.
Yeah. Especially
That's
after
scary.
the rocky draft that Mike McCagnon had last year and also the rocky offseason that he had last year. This year, he has done so much better for himself.
Well, let me ask you this. To go down the list of all the teams, who do you think did the worst? What team did the worst in the draft, if any?
What team did the worst in the draft?
Yes.
Well, definitely consider the Giants, especially with their first-round pick. As far as who did the single worst, well, I would question what Green Bay did, getting Rashawn Gary at number 12. He's a defensive end.
So that
Gary's been a guy who's been considered a questionable product, if you will.
So everybody else, team-wise, they picked the right people except for that one person.
If you look at all 7 rounds in the draft,
Right.
Well, let's see here.
Because the Giants did the first. I mean, the Giants, the first 2 picks of the Giants, nobody really liked.
Mm-hmm.
And Eli Manning's going to play, let's say, for 2 or 3 more years. This kid's going to be a backup for 2 or 3 more years.
That's
any.
assuming he even wants to play another 2 or 3 years. He might want to either take it year by year, or he might want to decide that this season is it.
But if that's the case, then doesn't that mean that the GM's job's on the line for drafting him at number 6?
Yeah. Let me put it this way. Daniel Jones is not terrible, but he's a real question mark right now. Question mark because he played 3 full seasons for Duke University. He was 2 games under 500 in those 3 years. And not once did he throw for 3,000 yards in that time. Plus, there's problems with his decision-making, and there are also problems with his accuracy because he barely completed 60% of his passes.
Now, does he have an upside at all?
Yeah, his height. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. So he's definitely got the body type to be a quarterback. He's right up there with Peyton and Eli, who are both 2 of the tallest quarterbacks in the game. But other than that, he's got very, very little to go with.
So what you're saying is the only upside is that he is tall, but
He's definitely got the size to be a quarterback, but definitely not the mental makeup.
And how old is he?
He's only 21.
So he's 21. You peak at about 24, 25 if you're really in the league playing.
Mm-hmm.
So, what?
And to answer your question from before about which team did the worst in the draft, one of those teams is Seattle for drafting DK Metcalf, a guy who has the body of Mr. America, but the football skill of...
Hello?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
DK Metcalf was drafted by Seattle, and even though Metcalf has the body type, some question whether he has the toughness to get separation against defenders in a game. They didn't address their problems with receiving help on the outside. And quite frankly, I don't know if Russell Wilson is going to have enough to work with next season.
Well, right now, the people that picked first place, what now since I'm on the phone, whichever. Since, the Cardinals were the first pick, correct?
Yeah, the Cardinals got the first pick, and they wound up getting Kyler Murray, as expected.
Isn't that the quarterback where that other guy's on there that they're trying to trade?
You mean Josh Rosen?
Yes.
Funny you mention that because Josh Rosen just got traded to Miami.
Oh, well, that was in the works.
Oh no, it's official. The trade's
No,
done.
I'm saying before that was in the works to trade him to Miami.
Yep.
But now it's official.
It is official. Josh Rosen will be the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins next season.
And that's a damn shame that the Jets and Giants couldn't get him.
Yeah. Well, the Jets have Sam Darnold, who I feel is twice as good as Josh Rosen is. Maybe you could argue that the Giants could have made a deal to get Rosen, but Dave Gettleman, who's the Giants general manager, he really had it in for Daniel Jones to be his future quarterback.
Yeah, because
it was down to him and Josh Allen, who was the defensive lineman from Kentucky. As it turns out, Josh Allen went 1 pick later to Jacksonville.
I mean, there was two other teams for the Giants, the quarterback that they picked. There was two other teams that wanted him,
Mm-hmm.
but they wanted him around 16 or 17.
Yep.
I think the Giants could have got him at 16 or 17. But who could they have gotten in 6? Who do you think they should have gotten at 6?
Quite frankly, I think they should have picked Josh Allen. They needed help on the edge of the defensive line, and they completely passed on him. Who knows if this is going to come back to bite them in the butt down the road?
Well,
I mean, at least give Dave Gettleman credit for trading up to get a third number 1 pick. And as it turns out, not only did they get Daniel Jones, but they also got Dexter Lawrence, who's a defensive lineman from Clemson. At least they were able to get that defensive lineman that they needed. But Josh Allen, boy, can you imagine Josh Allen and Dexter Lawrence on the same line? That would have been a future Pro Bowl duo.
and I don't understand. You see, that's the part I don't understand. They have months of actually thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And the war room, I think sometimes is a joke, because how do you make a draft choice in 10 minutes or whatever time they give you?
Yeah,
You know?
they really press these guys for time when it comes to teams still not certain about who they want to make the number 1 pick. And then in rounds 2 through 7, it's significantly less time. I think it's about 5 minutes.
Exactly. So, if you had to rate the Giants, let's say 1 to 5, or A, B, C, or D, or E, or an F, from A, B, C, or an F, D, or an F, well, how do you rate them?
If I had to grade them,
Grade 'em.
I would have to give them a C plus. The reason why I give them a C plus is because they were able to trade up to number 30 and get a defensive back, DeAndre Baker from Georgia. A lot
has
of
an
people,
upside.
yeah, he's got a
Has
major
an
upside. They
Everybody,
really,
I know that every one of those people, except for the quarterback, has an upside.
yeah.
Even though they're very weak on certain, I don't know if they have more weaknesses than strengths. Do they? Do the players have more weaknesses than strengths?
In the case of Dexter Lawrence, he definitely has more upside than downside. And same with DeAndre Baker, who the Giants have been looking at as well, because they needed help on the defense in the secondary in the worst way. Now that Landon Collins is gone, it could be that maybe he'll be the guy to pick up the slack. A lot of people like the third-round pick, Oshane Jimenez, who's from Old Dominion. They think that he could be a really good contributor for them. Then there's also Julian Love from Notre Dame. He's a defensive back. In fact, they picked 2 more defensive backs, Love and Corey Ballantyne from Washburn University.
Yeah, I got him.
The same guy who unfortunately was caught in a shooting on campus a couple of days ago, and he wound up losing his best friend. His best friend was shot to death.
That's a damn shame what's happening to people
Yeah.
in all schools that have to carry guns and all that other stuff. But it's kind of funny. They're talking about always gun control and teachers should arm themselves and so on. First of all, they should get damn good teachers.
Yeah.
And secondly, those teachers should get more pay.
You could say that again.
They should promote them the amount of money the strippers get and porno stars get. That's the money that policemen, scientists, and all them other people, they should be promoting this.
Firefighters too.
Because classes are so damn cluttered and everything else, it's ridiculous. And then when you have a teacher with a gun, I like to see a teacher with a gun in the Bronx in one of those other schools. That'll never happen. Probably in Wisconsin or Kansas, yeah. Oh, we'll arm them over there, but they won't arm them in the cities. That's craziness.
Yeah.
But anyway, and that's what kills me. You know, kids like these guys, they're losing left and right. And sport, and when it comes to sports, how many sports people haven't gotten shot?
How many have gotten shot? Too many.
A lot of them have gotten shot.
Yeah.
You know, so it's ridiculous. But so the Giants, it's a C+.
Mm-hmm.
Jets,
I'd give them a B+.
Let's go down the line 1 through 10. The teams that. What do you give the one that picked number 1?
The Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah.
Overall, I mean, it doesn't look like a terrible draft that they had, so I'd give them a B-. Only reason why I give them a B and not lower is because of the Kyler Murray draft selection.
Okay, and what else?
As far as
number 2,
let's see here. As far as the 49ers, they definitely get an A. Picking Nick Bosa second overall, and then after that, the draft that they had, let's see, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, who's a wide receiver, Jalen Hurd, who's a wide receiver. They stocked up on wide receivers this time.
So the 49ers stocked up on wide receivers.
Just a couple of wide receivers. After that, they wound up getting help at linebacker, at tight end, at offensive tackle, and at cornerback.
Okay, so they got an A for that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I still say Nick Bosa is related to me. Honestly, I gotta find out. I don't want no money from the guy. I don't want nothing from him. I just want to know if he's related or not.
Well, you can always go to Ancestry.com and try to find out.
Yeah, I should. Because that'd be cool. Because at least I can say, oh, look, I know somebody that's famous, but don't know he don't know me.
Yep.
He doesn't know somebody famous like me. But you know, so who's third is Jets, which you gave a
the
B+.
Jets were third. I gave them a B+.
Fourth?
Picking fourth was Oakland. They did get some help on the defensive line, getting Cleveland Farrell from Clemson.
Okay. Fifth? Oh, yeah, what'd you give them?
As far as what I give the Raiders, let's see here how they did overall. Well, they got the running back that they were going to replace Marshawn Lynch with. They got Josh Jacobs. In fact, they made 2 deals to get a pair of extra number 1 draft picks. They got Josh Jacobs from Alabama and Jonathan Abram from Mississippi State. Then after that, there's Trayvon Mullen, who's from Clemson, Isaiah Johnson, who's from the University of Houston.
Right.
They really loaded up in the secondary overall.
Okay.
And they also got a pretty decent receiver prospect, Hunter Renfrow from Clemson, who's more of a possession receiver than anything else.
So we're up to fifth, right?
Yep. I would give Oakland a B+.
B+? How about 5? If you want to put him, go ahead, put him. Okay, fine.
As far as the Buccaneers are concerned, they wound up getting Devin White from LSU, and they did need help defensively because they were really horrendous on the D-line last year. As far as overall,
overall,
I would say 7 out of their 8 picks overall were exclusively on defense. For that, I give them an A.
Because that's what they really needed.
Yeah, that's exactly what they needed.
Okay. Now, what else?
Drafting at
line.
we already mentioned the Giants. They were at number 6.
That's C plus.
Yeah, as
That
far
was- that
as
was
Jacksonville is
Oh
concerned.
no, C minus. It was a C minus for them.
Mm-hmm. As far as the Jacksonville Jaguars are concerned, they also wound up getting a quarterback of the future, Gardner Minshew from Washington State. Otherwise, they wound up getting a little bit of help offensively. They got an offensive tackle, that is, Jawan Taylor from Florida, and
Right.
a running back, Raquel Armstead, who's from Temple. Everybody else was picked on the defensive side of the ball. So for that, I'll give them a B plus.
Okay. What else? Go
Let's see,
down.
picking number 8
where's
was
number
Detroit.
8? Okay. Right.
Detroit was 8th. And let's see what we have here. Here we are. For the record, the Lions chose a tight end, T.J. Hawkinson from the University of Iowa. A little surprised that they decided not to get themselves a wide receiver, especially considering that Golden Tate went to the Giants. But overall, the draft that they had was pretty solid. I mean, it wasn't as great as the free agency that they had because they signed some pretty important people. But other than
Right.
that, I would give the Lions a B minus. They were
Okay.
able to help themselves defensively in the draft, and I think that's where the Lions needed the most help.
Right.
So they were able to help themselves defensively. As far
Number 9.
drafting at number 9, that was Buffalo, and they picked a defensive tackle from the University of Houston, Ed Oliver.
Now Buffalo is always a strange bedfellow because Buffalo, even Donald Trump wanted to buy the Buffalo Bills, and he overinflated his money, saying that he had a certain amount of money and didn't.
Yeah.
And the league didn't want him in the league for some reason, anyway, to begin with. But
Probably a wise idea.
You know, I have no idea why, but I don't know if he would have been better or any worse than what they have now. But explain to me, how did they do?
Well, they got the defensive tackle that they wanted, which is Ed Oliver from the University of Houston. Other than that, they mixed everything up between offense and defense. Offensively, they got a running back, Devin Singletary, who's from Florida Atlantic. Looks like he's going to be LaShawn McCoy's understudy. They also got Dawson Knox, who's a tight end from Mississippi. In fact, they got 2 tight ends. They got Dawson Knox and also Tommy Sweeney from Boston College. Defensively, they helped themselves out with a linebacker, a safety, an edge rusher, Vashawn Joseph, who they got from the University of Florida, Jaquan Johnson, they got from the University of Miami, and Darryl Johnson, who they got from North Carolina A&T. He's an edge rusher.
So they basically did, from 1 to 10, they basically did
Reasonably
okay.
well. I think they did well. I'd give them a B minus.
Now, Pittsburgh was number 10.
That's exactly right.
And because they traded up to number 10.
And the Steelers did exactly what they were supposed to do, and that was get help defensively. And they got that in the linebacker from Michigan, Devin Bush.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, how did Dallas do? Because in Minnesota.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, how far did they pick down?
Well, they did not have a number 1 draft pick.
Oh, wow.
So they wound up getting their first pick was a defensive tackle from Central Florida, which is Tristan Hill. Then after that, they wound up helping themselves in the next 3 rounds offensively. They got a guard, Connor McGovern from Penn State, and a running back, Tony Pollard from the University of Memphis. And my guess is that he's going to be either Ezekiel Elliott's backup or they might use him on special teams. We're not really sure. Defensively, they actually got another running back, Mike Weber from Ohio State. They got him in the late rounds. Defensively was where they really made a killing with their picks. Michael Jackson from the University of Miami, Joe Jackson from the University of Miami.
Damn, Michael Jackson's father and Michael Jackson are playing?
Yeah, they found different careers.
Yeah, right. They changed careers.
Yep. Donovan Wilson, who's a safety from Texas A&M. And then there's Jalen Jelks, who's an edge rusher from Oregon. I like the defensive picks that they made. I give them an A.
Who was number 11?
Picking at number 11 was Cincinnati. They got an offensive tackle, Jonah Williams from Alabama. Overall, Cincinnati, I would say they mixed things up for themselves a little bit. I think they might have gotten themselves a running back of the future. Rodney Anderson, who's from Oklahoma, he's a late round pick. There's also Drew Sample, a tight end from Washington. Ryan Finley, who had a very good career at North Carolina State. He wound up being picked 4th. And then a guard, Michael Jordan, not to be confused with the basketball player or the actor. This Michael Jordan is from The Ohio State University. And there's also Deshaun Davis, who's a linebacker from Auburn. And Jordan Brown, who's a defensive back from South Dakota State. Offensively, they got themselves a tight end, Drew Sample from Washington. There's also Travion Williams, who's a running back from Texas A&M. And a running back, Rodney Anderson from Oklahoma. Overall, I would give them a solid B-. They might have gotten the Ryan Finley pick is really interesting. Ryan Finley in fact, I think he had a much better career at North Carolina State than Daniel Jones did at Duke. So I would definitely give Cincinnati a solid B- here. As far as picking number 12, it's the Packers. We mentioned that they got Rashawn Gary.
Right.
As far as what they did for the entire draft, there was Gary. They got a safety from Maryland, Darnell Savage, a defensive end from Texas A&M, Kingsley Keke is his name. There's also Kadar Holman, who's a cornerback from Toledo, and Ty Summers, who's from Texas Christian. He's a linebacker. As far as offensively, they got center Elgin Jenkins, who's from Mississippi State. There's also J.C. Sternberger, who's a tight end at Texas A&M, and also Dexter Williams, who played at Notre Dame. He's a running back. There, I'd give a C+. The Rashawn Gary pick is a little bit of a questionable pick right there. He was graded reasonably low in everybody's draft boards.
Mm-hmm.
As far as number 13?
13, yeah.
That was the Dolphins, and they got themselves a defensive guy, Christian Wilkins from Clemson. As far as what they did overall, after Wilkins, they got they had 4 more. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more picks.
Right.
A guard, Michael Dieter, who's from Wisconsin. A linebacker, Andrew Van Ginkel, who's from Wisconsin. A tackle from Ohio State, Isaiah Prince. And then a pair of running backs, Chandler Cox from Auburn and Myles Gaskin from Washington.
Now, with the quarterback that they have now, is that an improvement?
Josh Rosen. They certainly got a lot younger. Now, whether that translates into getting better, I'm not really sure. But I would give them a B-.
Okay.
As far as number 14, it's the Falcons. They wound up getting Christopher Lindstrom,
Yeah, the
who's an
Falcons,
offensive guard from
they
Boston
didn't
College.
get a good pick. People were booing their pick, I think.
Yeah, I really don't get why, though. Unless it was from all of the Saints and Carolina Panthers and other Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans that were in Nashville for the draft. As far as what else the Falcons did, here we are. There was also they added more help on their offensive line. They got Caleb McGarry from Washington. He's a tackle. Other than that, Kendall Sheffield from Ohio State. He's a cornerback. John Kaminsky, who's a defensive end out of Charleston University, which is in West Virginia. And there's also Condry Ollison, who attended Pitt. He's a running back. Jordan Miller from Washington. He's a cornerback. And Marcus Green, who's from Louisiana Monroe. He's a wide receiver. As far as the Redskins are concerned, the Redskins actually did better this time. They got themselves Dwayne Haskins, who's a quarterback at Ohio State. And my guess is that he is going to be the quarterback of the future for them. Now that Alex Smith is questionable because he still hasn't recovered from his broken leg yet, and also the fact that Colt McCoy may or may not be 100%, it's looking more like Dwayne Haskins is going to be the guy for them. I think they're going to throw him into the fire immediately. As far as who else they picked, I like the Montez Sweat pick. The Redskins wound up trading up to get this kid. Montez Sweat is from Mississippi State. He's an edge rusher. Other than that, I like the Bryce Love pick. Bryce Love is a running back from Stanford. There's also Terry McLaurin, who's from Ohio State. Wes Martin, who's from Indiana. Cole Holcomb, who's from North Carolina. He's a linebacker. Kelvin Harmon, who's a wide receiver from NC State. Jimmy Moreland, who's from James Madison. He's a cornerback. And there's Jordan Brailford, who's an edge rusher from Oklahoma State.
How many teams are left?
We got half the field now.
Hmm.
So let's see. Picking at number 16, Carolina Panthers. They wound up getting the edge rusher, Brian Burns, from Florida State. Let's see how else they did. After the Panthers, the Giants had the 17th pick after making that deal with the Browns to trade away Odell Beckham Jr. As far as what the Panthers did, they got Brian Burns from Florida State. They also got a tackle, Greg Little, who's from, check that. Here we are. Greg Little's a tackle from Mississippi, and Will Greer is the quarterback from West Virginia. My guess is he's going to be Cameron Newton's backup. There's also Christian Miller, who's an edge rusher from Alabama. Jordan Scarlett, who's from Florida. Dennis Daly, who's from South Carolina. And Terry Godwin, who's from Georgia.
I'll take that.
So they wound up getting two edge rushers that they desperately needed to beef up that line for next season. Let's see how they can pan out for next year. The Panthers, I would give an A. As far as who's next, we mentioned the Giants. Then there's the Vikings, who picked 18th. They wound up getting the center, Garrett Bradbury from North Carolina State. They definitely needed offensive line help in the worst way.
Okay.
And after that, they wound up drafting one, two more offensive linemen in the draft. There was Drew Samia, who's from Oklahoma, and there's also Olisameka Udo, who's from Elon University, which is in North Carolina. They also drafted a tight end, Irv Smith from Alabama. They also got a running back, Alexander Madison, who's from Boise State. They also got the linebacker, Cameron Smith from USC. And they also got a defensive tackle, Armin Watts, who's from Arkansas. There's also Marcus Epps, who's from Wyoming. Chris Boyd's a cornerback at Texas. Dylan Mitchell is a wide receiver at Oregon. There's also Olabisi Johnson, who's a wide receiver at Colorado State. And then they picked someone who was a long snapper for the Air Force Academy last year, Austin Cutting. But knowing how his service time is going to work, I think he might have to do his 5 years of service with the Air Force first before he can play competitive football. Overall, the Vikings had a very good draft. I give them an A+. So far, the Vikings had the best draft.
Really?
Yes. They
So
addressed their
you're seeing them in first or second place in their division?
I would definitely see them probably regaining the top spot in the NFC North. Of course, it's going to be tough because Chicago and Green Bay are there as well, and Detroit's going to be a little bit of a pain. But I would definitely see Minnesota reclaiming the top spot in the North Division.
What number are you up to?
We are now at the 18th pick of the draft. Actually, the Vikings were the 18th. Tennessee's 19th now. And they wound up getting a defensive tackle from Mississippi State, Jeffrey Simmons. Let's see how the Titans did overall. After Jeffrey Simmons, they got A.J. Brown, who's a wide receiver from Mississippi. Then they got some help on the O-line, getting guard Nate Davis from UNC Charlotte. And then they went back to their defensive work. Amani Hooker from Iowa, DeAndre Walker of Georgia, and David Long of West Virginia. 3 defensive players that the Titans desperately needed to get themselves better for next season. So there, I would give them an A-.
And number 20?
Number 20 is going to be the Denver Broncos. We mentioned that the Broncos had already needed a lot of help going into this season. And they wound up trading down with the Pittsburgh Steelers to get to number 20. And the Broncos, with their 20th pick, got a tight end, Noah Fant from Iowa. As far as what else they did in this draft, well,
All you have to tell me is, did they improve or didn't they improve?
Well, they got their quarterback of the future, which is Drew Lock of Missouri. So I think they're set there. Defensively, they really did not do too much. They only got one defensive tackle, Draymond Jones from Ohio State, and Justin Hollins, who's an edge rusher from Oregon. Other than that, they helped themselves out on the offensive end. Noah Fant, Dalton Reisner, who's from Kansas State, and Juwan Winfrey, who's a wide receiver from Colorado. Honestly, Hector, I don't think that they did enough to try and help themselves defensively or offensively for that matter. They needed a ton of work at quarterback and at wide receiver and at running back.
I want to ask you a non-football question for a moment. I know we're on football, but do you remember the article I sent you?
You sent me a ton of articles. Which
The
one?
one about the if the Knicks don't draft the top 5.
Oh, that.
What did you think of that article?
To be quite honest with you, it's critical that they get themselves a number 1 draft pick. It's critical that they get the first overall pick. Quite frankly, their future rides on the lottery coming up. If they don't get that first overall pick, then chances are you might see them maybe trade down to try and get themselves a player who can fill a need for them.
But you don't think that Morat or Barrett will be at 2 or 3?
They'll definitely be at 2 or 3, but if the Knicks land at either 2 or 3, maybe they'll be able to get one of those guys, but the number 1 pick is what they need right now.
Right. But I'm
Zion
just saying,
Williamson, quite frankly, could be their meal ticket to respectability.
Because the way the article says, if they don't get, let's say they land at number 5, who do they pick at number 5? And they have this guy, this European kid.
I've already heard rumors that the Knicks might get another French kid. And supposedly, they say that he is Frank Ntilikina with an offensive game.
Okay. Again, and Atlanta, they were saying that Atlanta may go after Bol.
Buyer beware. That's all I got to say. Bol played only 9 games this season, and he is playing on some very, very fragile knees right now. If I'm any team picking from 1 through 30, buyer beware.
But did you read the article, though? Was that article any good?
To be honest with you, I only skimmed through the article, so I would probably have to see exactly what the rest of it entails. But right now, it's critical that the Knicks get a top pick. And for the record, the kid that the French kid that I was talking about,
right,
is Sekou Doumbouya. He's a two-way forward. He's only 19 years old, and from what they say, at 6'8", 230 pounds, showing some defensive versatility and an improved shooting game, and his competitiveness. They say that he might be one sleeper guy that the Knicks could probably pick.
That's if they pick at number 5.
Probably at number
they
5.
Pick at number 4. Who would they pick at number 4, you think?
At number 4 for the Knicks?
Yeah, if they had to. Probably the same kid that you're talking about, right?
Probably. Or maybe Darius Garland from Vanderbilt, Kobe White from North Carolina, both of whom are point guards. Well, possibly Jared Culver from Texas Tech. They need a shooter. Maybe Kevin Porter Jr. from USC.
Well, I'm reading the article now. I'm skimming through it. And Cleveland Cavaliers, Cam Reddish.
From Duke University.
Phoenix Suns, Darius Garland.
Yep.
Vanderbilt. Chicago Bulls, Kobe White.
Yeah. The Bulls, I can tell you right now, the Bulls are a mess. They are a complete and utter mess. The only thing that they've got going for them right now is the handful of young players that they have at their disposal, like Zach LaVine or Chris Dunn or a couple of the others.
The Knicks or the Bulls?
What's that?
Who's the bigger mess, the Knicks or the Bulls?
The Knicks are the bigger mess by far.
Are you saying it because of
I'm saying it
Dolan,
because
or
at
are you
least
saying it because of the players?
I'm saying it because of the players and the fact that the Bulls have a tad better ownership. And that's saying a lot considering that Jerry Reinsdorf
Well,
is the same guy that owns the White Sox, another team that's a mess.
exclude the ownership. Let's talk about the players. The players, the top 5 players that the Knicks should have.
The top
compared to
the top 5
Chicago
that they
White Sox
should
top
have?
5 players. Well, if you include, the Dennis Smith Jr. would be on your team. Kevin Knox is going to be on your. Mitchell Robinson is going to be on your team.
Yeah.
Next year, so you do have quite of a core 4 or core 5 there already, and they're old and they're under 20 years old or 21 years old. So you have to remember that. So you're talking about the Chicago Bulls being a mess. They're that much of a mess, but they got the young players too. So I don't understand. Are they that much better than? Are they a little bit better than the Knicks? The younger players that they have.
Some of them, skill-wise, some of them are much better than what the Knicks have right now.
Okay. Now, I got Bol, like I said, going to Atlanta Hawks. Washington Wizards, Jared Clavier from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And New Orleans, Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah. These are guys who would be the surprise picks for these teams if they decide to go that route.
Yeah. Jackson Hayes, Brandon Clark going to Minnesota Timberwolves, Los Angeles Lakers, Taylor Hero.
Yeah.
What are you thinking so far about these guys, if anything?
Personally, Kevin Porter Jr., I feel, is the better guard prospect. He's a lot more versatile. He's a bullish defender when you watch him. There are some of these kids I can honestly say never ever should have even tried to declare for the draft in the first place. I think Kobe White should have stayed in school. I think Darius Garland should have stayed in school. Bol most definitely should have stayed for his sophomore year.
You think so?
Yeah. The only reason why he's going to get picked by somebody is because he's 7'2", and
he's got a 7'6" wingspan.
With a 7'6" wingspan, and he has a pulse.
But here's the thing: if I'm that tall and I get hurt, and they're paying me more money than I'm getting at college because I could always go back to college, then you know what? If I'm getting hurt that badly, I might as well get paid NBA money. That's what the guy's thinking. I mean, you got to remember, some of these kids are coming from not the greatest places in the world. Now, Bol, he's got a famous father.
Had a famous father. He passed away.
Oh, yeah, he had a famous father who was a king in his tribe or something of that nature, but in Africa. But here's the thing. Again, I don't know if he spent all his money. You don't know if he spent all his money. So
funny that you mentioned that, because many years ago, when he was alive, there was a really interesting article in the Daily News about Manute Bol after his playing days. Manute Bol is from the Dinka tribe in the Sudan. The Sudan was going through a bloody civil war. Manute Bol basically used his entire life savings to fund the rebels that were fighting in that Civil War. And because of that, he was next to penniless. But he was revered as a hero in his country.
And that's why he had to do celebrity boxing, fighting
Exactly
against
right.
Perry.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I'm saying, for Bold, knowing you got no money, you're going to get picked. Why wouldn't you go for the draft?
Because, quite frankly, I still think that he has a little bit of work to do.
Yeah, but if you know that you may get hurt, if you have a chance to get hurt like he does, because look, his feet are already going. It's not his knees, it's his feet.
Yep.
So if I know that my foot's going to get hurt, but I'm going to get NBA decent money compared to what I'm getting in college, and let's say in college I blew out my knee and I can't come back and I can't go into the NBA, then I'm the one that gets screwed out of NBA money. No, the heck with that. That's how some of these kids are thinking of, and you can't blame them. You're right. Some of them should stay and get the chops, but that's the way the ball bounces, man.
Oh well.
You know, it's all about the money. It's all about the Benjamins, like they say.
Well, I still think that he needs to be back there at least for another year or two.
He can always go to D-League.
That's if he really stinks it up. Otherwise, he'll probably make the main roster.
Like I said, it's all about the Benjamins. It's all about them Benjamins. But the Yankees are doing good.
10 of their last 12 with 11 people on the disabled list. And somehow they're doing this with pitching. And the ace of the staff is none other than Domingo Germán, who's already won 5 out of his first 6 starts this season.
And timely hitting, too. You got to give the people that are coming out of the draft, coming out of the bench, a heck of a lot of credit.
Yep.
Because, you look who you're lost. Gary Sanchez hitting a home run with people on base and all, and the first baseman coming out of nowhere. Do you think Greg Bird lost his job to Voit?
I think quietly he has lost his job. Luke Voit has been outclassing Greg Bird at the plate. Bird is basically nothing more than a defensive replacement.
Bird's getting the bird.
Yep. Well, with about roughly a minute left, do you have any last words for us?
Yes. The last word is keep hope alive with the Islanders. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Nets. Let's see how they do in the pick. Hopefully they'll get number 1, and the Yankees will continue playing strong, and hopefully the Mets will get better now.
All right. Hector, thank you.
All right. Take it easy.
All righty. For everyone here, I'm Jamie.
I'm Hector.
Good night, everyone. Enjoy the games.
Good night.